Overall, I mean, when you go back and look at kind of how the tape of how yesterday went, what's kind of the biggest thing that jumped out for you?
I think our guys played very situationally aware, and won the battlefield position. I thought our special teams, particularly the punt team, did a great job pinning them down there. Defense rewarded them for that, with turnovers and sacks and productive plays. And offensively scored 24 points, but and opportunities maybe to do a little bit more. But still, we're able to move the ball to on the possessions where we did score touchdowns, pin them down in there too. So I thought overall, versus a really good football team, it was a productive day. And really, when you talk about playing complementary football, it was that type of game. That's what we're talking about. All three phases complement each other, and we're able to get out of there with a win.
You're looking at the tight end tape again outside of the touchdowns. What stood out?
Everything. I mean, the blocking in the run game, they were all asked to do that. Just some of the plays that they made, period. It's Tanner had a big one on 3rd and 1, with kind of the double move. Caught a big play there. Irv had the play on the first drive that got us down in there into scoring range. Then he finished off with a touchdown. Drew obviously had the touchdown. And so there was just really good things, I thought, by all four of those guys that helped us win.
The expanded use of the tight ends, is that more a case of like, look, that's just what the defense gave us,
Yeah.
or is it like just, or is it more like we wanted to emphasize those guys more?
No, they're always a part of the plan. And some games the ball's going to go that way, and some days it won't. And I think you could see, Jamar's targets were down in the first half because of it wasn't because we weren't calling things that could go that way. It's just that was a decision they made. And so the ball went to some other people, and guys stepped up, and that's what we needed.
Do you expect Jamar Chase to be able to play against the Texans, or is it still too early to
I think I was just with him. He's sore right now, so it's impossible to say the day after the game, and we'll just take it day to day with him.
What's your understanding of kind of how that all kind of played out? It sounded like he just kind of got sore as the game went on. I mean, what kind of information do you have on
I think it was when he landed on it, down the field. But beyond that, it's we'll see as we continue to go, and that's not trying to raise any warning signs or anything like that. It's just right now sore.
talking about that deep ball down the middle, I guess?
I think I haven't asked directly, but I just assumed that was the one where he was slowest to get up.
With the tight ends, Herb has the fumble and Tanner gets promoted. Do you have a talk with him and say, hey, you're still on our plans, you're still a part of this, or is that just something that needs to be understood that he has to?
This was something, Tanner, I went back to, Tanner was probably the 54th guy as we made that decision, at Final Cuts. And he did a lot of things that were positive to put him in that position. So that was something that always weighed in the back of our mind of guys that are deserving for opportunities. And that doesn't speak to another person. That just speaks to guys that we have on our roster that continue to earn it through the way that they practice. And I thought Tanner, the week before we promoted him, had an outstanding week of practice. I remember him making plays in the red zone against our defense. And, you're just kind of watching it with Duke and just saying this guy deserves an opportunity. And it doesn't speak poorly to the other guys in the room. Just because one guy has one fumble doesn't change your whole – that's not how we react to things. We look at the body of work, and Irv has done some really great things over the course of the season that, again, probably don't get written about because they're not all things that are splash plays necessarily. But we got a lot of confidence in Irv and the other guys in the room, and it was just an opportunity for Tanner to get up. And when we got him up, let's see what he can do, and he was able to do some good things for us.
What impressed you the most, going back on the tape, Zach, about the offensive line, the way they blocked in certain situations?
Well, it's just the consistency from week to week for them. We faced some really good defenses and players. So we've had matchups that would be viewed as very difficult matchups, and our guys have just risen to the challenge. And so, and Joe's able to help them too by moving a little bit when he needs to, because it's not always perfect in this league. I've mentioned the types of D-lines that are out there, but just the character and the chemistry of that room. They do a great job communicating. They have a great plan going in the game. They do a great job evolving as the game goes. And so, again, it's a room that you've got a lot of trust and faith in is going to step up in the big moments and be able to protect and find some runs when you need them as well.
What did you see on Joe's touchdown run?
Joe Mixon's? Yeah, just great job creating movement. So it was 3rd down. It was a situation early in the game where you felt comfortable running it there, knowing that if it didn't work, we'd probably go for it on 4th down. And those guys got the movement we needed, and Joe walked right in.
Deep throw to Boyd to close it out. Also 3rd and 10
those are core plays for TB. You know, plays he's repped 1,000 times. So the trust that's there between him and Joe. And, you know, the third and 10 was right in front of me. Great touch. And TB did a great job. I mean, kind of behind his eyes, catching that ball. That's can be sometimes more difficult for guys than you realize. And he did a great job hauling that in, getting his feet in. And then that last one, the 1st and 10, you know, there were 3 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever it was. Just core play for us that our guys have executed a million times. It was man coverage. Joe did a great job reading it. TB was where he needed to be. The throw was kind of thrown before he came out of his break, knowing he was going to flatten it. TB knowing I got to flatten it here, and knowing where Joe's going to throw it, and just then staying in bounds, getting more yards, getting us into plus territory there so that we could finish the game off the right way with a field goal if needed, or finish it the way that we did. And so, again, can't say enough good things about the chemistry that those two guys have.
You expect to get Charlie Jones back this week?
We expect we'll make a decision here in the next couple of days. I don't want to jump ahead here, but things are positive with him to hopefully bring him back to practice this week.
You look at the division standings and you realize every team's 2 or more games above 500. Then you look back at the weekend and you see that everybody won again in the division. What's it like to see the way that this division's gone so far this year and continues to go week by week?
We know how difficult it is, and I think other teams that come play our division realize what the 4 teams in this division go through on a yearly basis. The good news is you get opportunities to all those teams again, and so you get a chance to earn your keep and move yourself how you want to be moved. And so those opportunities will all be down the road. And but as we all know, it's been proven time and time again, this is a very difficult division.
Does it add pressure at all on weekends like your all's bye when they all win, or like this week when they all win?
We're at the point in the season where you just got to control what you can control. So the pressure, there's always pressure. You got to win every week because of the way that these seasons can shake out and the teams that can rise and fall as it goes. And so our team just knows that you just got to take it week in and week out and do everything you can to find a win.
The defense is already approaching the number of picks it had all of last season. Why have you guys been a better team this year generating interceptions?
That's a good question. I don't know that I would have known that. You know, it's when the ball's in the air, they make a play. You know, I think I've seen that when they get their hands on it, they've come down with it. And I wouldn't say we've worked on it anymore. That's always been a big focus from our defense and practice, you know, doing their ball security circuits and preaching it during practice and letting know how many attempts are made at the ball. This year so far, we've created a lot of opportunities that we've capitalized on.
All up tight ends that have come through here in recent years have sung the praises of Coach Casey.
Yeah.
What is it about him? What's unique?
Everything, I think. First of all, he's got a background that people they know that he's got a lot of credibility there. And for someone that's really self-made, you know, pro baseball player, decided to go back to college, was a star player at Rice. I mean, you got to understand, I believe he threw a touchdown pass. I know he ran for touchdowns. He played defensive end. He's had a sack in a game. I think he threw the javelin in a track meet once. I think he got second. You might have to look that up when he was at Rice, just for the heck of it. And so the guy's just he's a machine, and he's so detailed on how, you know, he played 4 years in the Texans, which at the time he played there probably had the best overall group of tight ends that I'd seen in a long time. You know, the way they detailed and they used him in that offense. So he got to learn a lot of football there in his 4 years in Houston playing for Kubiak. And then he went to Philly. They had great tight ends there in Philly. So he saw a lot of great ways to do it from great players and coaches. And then he comes here and he gets a chance just to hone in on the details. And so I think it's important, especially at that position, someone who played it because of all 3 phases that they have to participate in on offense. And he understands that and stresses the little details, how they're critical to making guys successful. They bought into that. He has a great way about him of relating to these guys, of making sure that they understand how important their job is and how critical every mistake would be. But at the same time, those guys love spending time. You know, you walk by his office and there's always somebody just sitting in there watching tape on their own, you know. And so, you know, there's over the history of coaches in the NFL, there's probably some that people have avoided. You know, they only want to be around them when they have to be. James is one of those guys that I think guys really flock to. You look at Tyler Eifert when I first got here all the way to the guys that we have now. They want to learn from him. They trust everything he says is going to help them be a better player. I think he's helped every single tight end that's come through there reach their potential. I truly believe that, every guy we've seen here, and I think that they would all say that as well. And so, it's hard to imagine that there's one better than him.
He's one of the first guys you call, right? When you go to draft. He's one of the.
Yeah, I mean, I think now 5 years in, I can be truthful on how the whole situation played out. My brother coached in Philly when James played there, and I was looking, if I got the opportunity, I needed a tight end coach, and I was asking people. My brother said, "You just hired James Casey," and I said, "I don't really know him." He said, "Just hire him. Trust me, just hire him." He was at the University of Houston, so I remember calling James, and I just said, "Hey, if I get this opportunity somewhere, do you want to be the tight end coach?" And he just said yes. And I think I called him 40 days later, and I said, "Hey, I got a job. Are you still in?" He goes, "Yes." And that was the interview process. But again, it was because of I knew his body of work as a player. I knew who he learned from. I'd seen, he wasn't the starting tight end for the Houston Texans. He was probably third or fourth. And when you're the third or fourth, you got to know all the details in order to survive at a place like there where they used a ton of 12 and 13 personnel. I knew that you'd be on top of it. He played for my brother, so my brother knew what type of person and player he was, and haven't been disappointed ever, in James. And so again, he's everything that you'd hoped he'd be, and he's done a great job with those guys.
There's always a lot of talk about when players play former teams like Nick and the Rams earlier this year. I mean, Frank got to play the 49ers,
Yeah.
Now James and the Texans. Do you see a little extra juice from coaches when they get to go against a team they played for?
I think our guys do a good job of not bringing that out. You know what's there. There's the history there, certainly, and Dan Pitcher is from New York. Playing the Bills is always an experience for him, and so there's a lot of guys that go through that kind of stuff, and that's what the cool part about the NFL. But again, what's so special about guys like Frank and James, like you said, is they just focus on what's important right now, and that's getting the players ready. And but yeah, to say that there's not special moments there with their family and friends and people they played with before, I'm certain that exists.
Zach, there's a story out there, has been recently, about, I guess your grandmother saw a TV segment about a World War II veteran,
Yeah.
super fan, wanted you to connect with him.
Okay.
My question is, what was that conversation with your grandmother? And then why do you make it a point to have that one-on-one connection with fans when you can?
Yeah. I don't know how that's out there, but that is true. My Mimi, Peggy, she lives in Ada, Oklahoma. She called me and she sent me a video she did it an unbelievable way that she did it. She sent me the video and she sent me a text saying, "I'll explain when you have time, call me." She didn't call me. She just said, "When you have time on your bye week, call me." So I watched this video. It was cool. It was a World War II veteran and a friend of his, somewhere in Ohio. I can't quite remember where in Ohio, but that they wanted to meet a player or coach. And so she just asked me when I had time to film a video and send it to her, and she'd forward it on. So I talked to her, and we talked a lot about Ada high school football. Ada's a big powerhouse down there. That's my dad, won state championships. And so she still goes to all the games at Ada. So I think they had a big game against Potu that week. I think they got beat as I looked it up. But so she's all into high school football in Ada, Oklahoma. She had a bunch of Division I athletes. My uncle played at Oklahoma State basketball. My dad played at Oklahoma. So she's been through more sporting events than any human that's ever existed, various things. And so she's always watching us from afar. I don't really still understand how she came across this video from Ohio, but she did. She said it played locally in Oklahoma, and she saw it, and she wanted to follow up. And so she sent it to me, and I filmed a short video, and don't know where it's gone from there, but sent it back to her. It must be out there, I guess, now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's out there.
Okay.
Does she do that a lot? Or?
No. She's this one was important to her, and so it was important to me.
Zach, you're kind of saying after the game last night, you wanted to maybe think a little more on some of the decisions,
Yeah.
the fourth down stuff. Did you go back through those and have any thought? Did it change some of your view on some of the stuff there on those fourth downs?
Yeah, I won't get into great detail about it, but it was all worthy of conversation. And again, there's different moments in the game I think called for different things. The one thing you do walk away with is anytime you pin the other team's offense down there, our defense is really good. And so you should never really second guess that, but there is an aggressiveness that you can play with on offense too to score more points early in the game. So there's a lot of things to balance there. We talked in great depth about anything we would do differently, and if that'll change going forward. The opponent always dictates that as well, but I think it generated a lot of good conversation this morning that we learned from.
I say you guys have always been pretty good at evolving with that type type of stuff. I mean, you can't be, this is our math,
Yeah.
right? Is that, how much does that dependent on your team as your team evolves? Does that change things for you?
It in game, and certainly you've got one way you think the game can play out, and you make some decisions before the game on how we'll play these situations. And then as the game goes, you have to respond to how the game goes. And so Sam does a great job of keeping me informed on what the information says we should do. But that doesn't mean as the game flows and how your defense is playing or how your offense is playing or how you're punting the ball, how you're kicking the ball, all that stuff matters as the game goes. And so I think that we do a pretty good job of taking in that information and evolving as the game evolves too.
As you continue to be in the league, how much do you value having the analytics guy or someone who has all the numbers in the headset as you make decisions real time in those kind of situations?
It's invaluable for us. And again, Sam does a great job with how he communicates. There's a lot of trust there. But again, that relationship is just as important as the analytics are. Him knowing how to talk to us in game and understanding my responses, sometimes not taken personally. But that's critical. There's a chemistry there and there's a relationship there and a trust factor there that allows us to evolve in game and allows us to communicate in a way that I think helps us be successful.
It seemed like as just like last night went on, the defense seemed to have things in check. Brad was having a good night, and so it kind of reflected maybe some of your decisions.
It certainly factors into it, and again, I think I thought we played great complementary football in all three phases that factored into that.
You feel like you've been generally more conservative this year?
I haven't looked back at how it compares to last year, to be honest with you. I feel like this was I shouldn't be so quick to say that, but it feels like there was a lot more decisions last night than we've had overall. It hasn't been that many decisions over the course of the year that have come down to that fringe area that we were in. So maybe I feel like there's been fewer moments than maybe years past is the best way to put it.
Is it easier to address the 6 penalties for 49 yards when you win?
No, it's not easy. No, I mean, it's the critical ones where we had a 3rd and 1 that I think ended up in a 4th and 15 or 20 that knocked us out of scoring range. And those were critical. That was on offense and special teams. And that came off a turnover. So that was a decision to punt on 4th and 2 that we pinned him down there, I think, on the 11. Cam got the pick 2 plays later. And then we get down to a 3rd and 1 that we end up getting knocked out of field goal range. And so those are situations we've got to be better at because ultimately that can end up costing you points that may in a 1-possession game end up costing you the game.
What's it like to see the defensive line kind of continue to evolve and come up with big pressures and sacks in pivotal moments?
Yeah, and it can be a different guy in each moment. They're all getting hits on the quarterbacks and they're all affecting them, and whether they're getting credit for sacks or not, you can feel all those guys. And that's been the 4 starters. That's been Josh last week at San Fran. That's been Cam Sample, Miles Murphy and Joseph coming in their own as well. Zach Carter's going to have his moment. So you really feel it from all those guys on the D-line have stepped up when we needed them, and it's just not the same. It doesn't have to be Trey Hendrickson every play and or DJ or saying, it's all those guys have had their moments, and you got to have that as the season goes on.
You spoke last Monday about night games here.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the stripes?
Awesome.
The
Yeah, cool. I mean, I looked at a lot of pictures. That was probably the one thing I did. I watched the game on my iPad, and then my wife had a different view, obviously, so I got to see pictures that she had. And special, they were swinging Sweet Caroline in the second half. I almost started singing. It's like it was. You could tell people were feeling pretty good in the second half, whether we were winning or not. They'd had a long day, and you could tell that the energy was feeling good, and that was just great energy for our team. And I'm sure Buffalo fans would say the same thing as they came here and enjoyed that environment. Like I've said before, I've had other coaches that have played here talk about the night games and how cool it was, and so credit to everybody who's a part of the game day experience here. They've really done a great job, and makes it a lot of fun, and our team responds well, and we feel like we win a lot of games when the lights are off here in the stadium. And I don't know the exact record or math, and sometimes 4:30 games turn into night games as well, but it certainly feels like positive energy when we're playing night games here.
Said your wife had pictures to show you. Was she like pictures of the atmosphere you're talking about?
Just the stripes and stuff in the stadium.
More
Yeah.
excited to show you those pictures than like a typical week with the stripes and all that?
She was excited we won, and so yeah, it's always good. It's always good for everybody when we win.
Knock on wood, I was just curious after the Texans game, but do you have an emergency kicker?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything like that? I'm sure you don't want to divulge who it is, but have you ever seen anything with a kid like that kid did yesterday?
Well, I think Kansas City did something similar. I don't remember the situation. I can't remember if it was a tight game or a meaningful game, but I think they had an injury last year, if I'm not mistaken, and one of their safeties kicked it. I could be. I think I'm right. Kansas City, maybe last year, the year before. Yeah, Reed did it. So it's happened. It's never fun, and you got to have contingency plans for it. But it can happen.